Hello, warriors. I'm Miss Thomas, and I am going to be reading you another chapter of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory today. So we have finished all the way through chapter 17, and today we're going to be reading chapter 18. It is Down the Chocolate River. This is actually one of my favorite chapters. If you've ever seen the movie, or if you're going to come out and see it on our One School, One Book celebration, there's a scene in the movie that goes right with this chapter. So you might even be able to picture it in your head as I'm reading. Ready? Chapter 18, Down the Chocolate River. Off we go, cried Mr. Wonka. Hurry up, everybody. Follow me to the next room. And please don't worry about Augustus Gloop. He's bound to come out in the wash. They always do. We shall have to make the next part of our journey by boat. Here she comes, look! A steamy mist was rising up now from the great warm chocolate river. And out of the mist there appeared suddenly a most fantastic pink boat. It was a large, open rowboat with a tall front and a tall back, like a Viking boat of old. And it was of such a shining, sparkling, glistening pink color that the whole thing looked as though it was made out of bright pink glass. There were many oars on either side of it, and as the boat came closer, the watchers on the riverbank could see that the oars were being pulled by masses of Oompa Loompas. At least 10 of them to each oar. So there's not one person or one Oompa Loompa pulling each oar. There's 10 on each oar. So depending on how many oars there are, there's probably hundreds of Oompa Loompas in this boat. This is my private yacht, cried Mr. Wonka, beaming with pleasure. I made her by hollowing out an enormous boiled sweet. Isn't she beautiful? See how she's cutting through the river? So a boiled sweet is like a Jolly Rancher. Jolly Rancher is a kind of boiled sweet. The gleaming pink boiled sweet boat glided up the riverbank. 100 Oompa Loompas rested on their oars and stared up at the visitors. Then suddenly, for some reason best known to themselves, they all burst into shrieks of laughter. What's so funny? Asked Violet Beauregard. Oh, don't worry about them, cried Mr. Wonka. They're always laughing. They think everything's a colossal joke. Jump into the boat, all of you. Come on, hurry up. As soon as everyone was safely in, the Oompa Loompas pushed the boat away from the bank and began to row swiftly down the river. Hey there, Mike TV, shouted Mr. Wonka. Please do not lick the boat with your tongue. It'll only make it sticky. Well, I wonder why it's not sticky from being in the chocolate. Chocolate's wet, too. Daddy, said Veruca Salt, I want a boat like this. I want you to buy me a big, pink, boiled sweet boat exactly like Mr. Wonka's. And I want lots of Oompa Loompas to roll me about. And I want a chocolate river. And I want... She wants a good kick in the pants, whispered Grandpa Joe to Charlie. The old man was sitting in the back of the boat, and little Charlie Bucket was right beside him. Charlie was holding tightly onto his grandfather's bony old hand. He was in a whirl of excitement. Everything he'd seen so far, the great chocolate river, the waterfall, the huge sucking pipes, the candy meadows, the Oompa Loompas, the beautiful pink boat, and most of all, Mr. Willy Wonka himself, had been so astonishing. He began to wonder whether there could possibly be any more astonishments left. Where were they going now? What were they going to see? And what in the world was going to happen in the next room? So many amazing things have happened that he's just like, what else could possibly happen? Isn't it marvelous? Said Grandpa Joe, grinning at Charlie. Charlie nodded and smiled up at the old man. Suddenly, Mr. Wonka, who was sitting on Charlie's other side, reached down into the bottom of the boat, picked up a large mug, dipped it into the river, filled it with chocolate, and handed it to Charlie. Drink this, he said. It'll do you good. You look starved to death. Charlie really kind of is, right? His family's always starving. Then Mr. Wonka filled a second mug and gave it to Grandpa Joe. You too, he said. You look like a skeleton. What's the matter? Hasn't there been anything to eat in your house lately? Not much, said Grandpa Joe. Charlie put the mug to his lips, and as the rich, warm, creamy chocolate ran down his throat into his empty tummy, his whole body from head to toe began to tingle with pleasure, and a feeling of intense happiness spread over him. You like it? Asked Mr. Wonka. Oh, it's wonderful, Charlie said. The creamiest, loveliest chocolate I've ever tasted, said Grandpa Joe, smacking his lips. That's because it's been mixed by a waterfall, Mr. Wonka told him. And there's the picture I have in my book. So you can see how it's got the tall front and the tall back, and then there's all the Oompa Loompas in the middle. The boat sped on down the river. The river was getting narrower. There was some kind of a dark tunnel ahead. A great round tunnel that looked like an enormous pipe. And the river was running right into the tunnel, and so was the boat. "Row on!" shouted Mr. Wonka, jumping up and waving a stick in the air. "Full speed ahead!" And with the Oompa Loompas rowing faster than ever, the boat shot into the pitch-dark tunnel, and all the passengers screamed with excitement. "How can they see where they're going?" shrieked Violet Beauregarde into the darkness. "There's no way they're knowing where they're going," cried Mr. Wonka, hooting with laughter. "There's no earthly way of knowing which direction they are going. There's no knowing where they're rowing, or which way the river's flowing. Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing, and they're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing." "He's gone off his rocker!" shouted one of the fathers aghast, and the other parents joined in the chorus of frightened shouting. "He's crazy!" they shouted. "He's balmy! He's nutty! He's screwy! He's batty! He's dippy! He's dotty! He's daffy! He's goofy! He's beany! He's buggy! He's wacky! He's loony! No, he's not!" said Grandpa Joe. So those were a whole lot of good synonyms for crazy, huh? "Switch on the lights!" shouted Mr. Wonka. And suddenly, on came the lights, and the whole tunnel was brilliantly lit up, and Charlie could see that they were indeed inside a gigantic pipe, and the great upward curving walls of the pipe were pure white and spotlessly clean. The river of chocolate was flowing very fast inside the pipe, and the Oompa Loompas were all rowing like crazy, and the boat was rocketing along at a furious pace. Mr. Wonka was jumping up and down in the back of the boat and calling for the rowers to row faster and faster still. He seemed to love the sensation of whizzing through a white tunnel on a pink boat on a chocolate river, and he clapped his hands and laughed and kept glancing at his passengers to see if they were enjoying it as much as he. So it's kind of like riding with the windows down, right? Or down a hill on a bike. "Look, Grandpa," cried Charlie. "There's a door in the wall." It was a green door, and it was set into the wall of the tunnel just above the level of the river. As they flashed past it, there was just enough time to read the writing on the door. "Storeroom number 54, it said. "All the creams. Dairy cream, whipped cream, violet cream, coffee cream, pineapple cream, vanilla cream, and hair cream." "Hair cream?" cried Mr. TV. "You don't use hair cream." "Row on!" shouted Mr. Wonka. "There's no time to answer silly questions." They streaked past a black door. "Storeroom number 71, it said. "Whips, all shapes and sizes." "Whips!" cried Veruca Salt. "What on earth do you use whips for?" "For whipping cream, of course," said Mr. Wonka. "How can you whip cream without whips? Whipped cream isn't whipping cream at all unless it's been whipped by whips. Just as a poached egg isn't a poached egg unless it's been stolen from the woods in the dead of night. Row on, please." They passed a yellow door on which it said, "Storeroom number 77. All the beans. Cocoa beans, coffee beans, jelly beans, and has-beans." "Has-beans!" cried Violet Beauregarde. "You're one yourself," said Mr. Wonka. "There's no time for arguing. Press on, press on!" But 5 seconds later, when a bright red door came into sight ahead, he suddenly waved his gold-topped cane in the air and shouted, "Stop the boat!" All right, folks, I'll see you later. Have a good night.